Hi there, this is Brian, back again for another video. I am making a project for my mother-in-law. She had requested a set of nail binding needles, so I'm going to be making her a set out of an old piece of cow bone that I've had for, I don't know, 20, 25 years, something like that. I found out in a field a long time ago, back when I was a kid, and I've just had it sitting around waiting on the perfect project. So she had asked for a set of these, so I'm going to be making a video on my process as I put them together. And obviously I can't post this until after I've given them to her because I don't want to spoil the surprise. So stay with me. So here we have the piece of cow bone itself that I have cut out from leg bone. It was part of the femur actually of the cow. It's pretty thick. It's significantly thicker than I need it to be once we finish. Just see that. So what I've done to start off with is I've gone ahead and penciled in the final shape of the nail binding needles. And I'm going to go ahead and drill holes here, 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 and here while I have a large piece of bone to work with. To get that started, then I can work those holes with a file to get them to the right shape and go ahead and shape them as much as I can before I cut out the final shape with my bandsaw. And then from there, it's going to be a whole lot of work sanding and grinding to get these to the final shape and then polishing. So I'm going to drill these holes and then I'll get back to you guys once I'm on the next step. Just as an aside, whenever you're working with bone or antler, make sure you're wearing your proper PPE, especially if you're grinding or sanding or anything like that. Got my respirator on and my safety glasses. Safety first. All right, moving right along. You can see I've got my 4 holes drilled. Next, I'm going to take a Dremel tool and work on getting those 2 spaces combined so that we'll have the eye of the needle. With a lot of my work, I like to use my hand tools as much as possible. However, bone is really, really hard. So I'm going to use my power tools because I'd like to have this done in the next few days. So go ahead and get that done. And once I have the eyes opened up and kind of ground to shape a little bit, I'm not going to do too much work on that because I need to flatten this a good deal and thin it as well. So I'm going to start with just getting the eyes into shape, and then I'm going to take the whole piece of bone and try to grind those corners. Whoop, not too close. Grind those corners off to make it a little bit flatter. And then once I have that done, I'll cut it to shape and start working on each individual needle. Okay, you can see now that the Dremel tool made pretty short work of opening up those eyes here. So now we're going to take it to the belt sander. We're going to sand down those edges there, and then we'll cut them out and start shaping the final needles. All right, so the belt sander made pretty quick work of those edges I needed to get sanded down. So now I have a flat surface to rest on my bandsaw to go in and actually cut the outlines of these out. This is my old Craftsman belt sander. As with just about all of my tools, I inherited this from my paternal grandmother. So my grandmother on my dad's side and my grandfather on my mom's side are pretty influential as far as teaching me what I know about woodworking and really inspiring me with the feeling that I can do anything I set my mind to. So I inherited a lot of tools from them, and every time I'm in here in the shop working on a project, it reminds me of both of them. So we're going to take this over to the bandsaw next, and I'll get back to you once we have them kind of cut to shape. You saw the belt sander. Here's the bandsaw. Also, again, inherited from my grandmother. All right, we are getting closer every minute. So now we have the rough shapes cut out. So I'm going to take these back to the belt sander. I'm going to sand them down exterior, really, really close to final shape on the belt sander. And then what's left is going to be polishing up and doing the finishing work on the inside of the hole on the eye here. I have to do that with sandpaper and files and emery boards and stuff like that. Yeah, and I'll get back to you once we're a little bit closer. So we've got one rough ground just about to shape. So from here on, I'm going to be doing some handwork on this, getting it final shaped and polished and then cleaned up. Alright, so here's the finished product. We're upstairs out of the workshop, so we have a little bit better light so you can see this. You see that we've got the hole drilled, got the shape all smoothed, got the end pointed but not sharp. So I went over this with a round file to flare, kind of put a chamfer on the opening here. You can see that there. And then I used the file to kind of knock the corners off here. I used the belt sander initially just to kind of rough everything in. And then I went over it with 3 different grits of sandpaper. And then once I finished up with the final grit of sandpaper, I went over it with a little buffing wheel attached to a Dremel tool. You can see the bone has some character. There's some cracks there. Again, this is a very, very old bone, but I polished that to where it's smooth so it doesn't catch on anything. You can see some different colors and everything there. So that is the finished product, and by the time I post this, it will be in the hands of its intended recipient. So thanks for taking the time to walk through this with me, and I hope to see you guys again soon on the next video.